Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom Grossi, and a lot going on in Packer Nation. As of late, we have a new head coach, Joe Philbin, filling in, hopefully just temporarily. And, of course, we just lost to the 2-9 Arizona Cardinals at home. And they're from Arizona. And it was in Wisconsin. And it was cold. And we still lost. But now we have the Atlanta Falcons to worry about. And both teams not going anywhere in a hurry. So this may be just a soul-crushing, depressing episode. But nonetheless, we do have our Falcons fan on for this week. And that is Mr. Nick Hartman. Nick, thanks so much for coming on the show. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Now, as I just alluded to, Nick, I want to say that neither of us are particularly happy with the way things are going with our respective organizations.
It's been a rocky season.
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to put it. Right now, you guys are sitting at 4-8. You know, we're 4-7-1, so not much better on that end. So kind of like just to dive right into talking about even your just division. Everybody is talking about the New Orleans Saints, right? And opposed to like last Thursday where like they looked unstoppable except when they met the Dallas Cowboys. They look like they are near Super Bowl favorites with the Rams in the NFC. You also have the Panthers that are competing for a playoff spot. But even the Bucks have kind of jumped out ahead of you guys. Kind of what's going on in Atlanta, my friend?
Well, it's not the prettiest of pictures, that's for sure. So, I mean, we've you know, it's always easy to say you've had injuries. Everyone in the NFL has injuries, but
Sure.
We did sort of in the first 3 weeks of the season, we lost Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, and then Ricardo Allen in sequence, and that hurt.
Yeah.
Deion Jones was calling our defense until he went down, and then Ricardo Allen was calling the defense for the next 2 weeks until he went down. And then Keanu Neal on top of that was he's a big thumper in the middle of the middle of the defense. And, all those guys are in the middle of our defense. So all of a sudden, the middle of our defense is not the strongest piece.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were already kind of relying on, we don't really have a lot of big bodies in the middle of our defense. It was already kind of predicated on light guys with speed. And so when you lose the guys with top end speed, all of a sudden you've just got a bunch of light guys who can't run as fast as they need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, it's been a misadventure through the season, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, listen, I know all about injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and it's it's tough. But you guys, I feel, for a long time have been labeled as like a high-powered offense, right? Like you've all like the Julio Jones, the Matt Ryan, you're the running back duo of Freeman, and like all those things. You put it all together, and you guys have an awesome offense. We know firsthand after getting destroyed in the 2016 NFC Championship game. So like we're fully aware. So, but over the last 2 years, you guys finished 10-6 last year. Matt Ryan coming off his MVP year. Didn't have the greatest stats in the world, but then this year, I feel like it's gotten even worse. And I know like offensive line troubles and Matt Ryan getting sacked is a problem. But the last Falcons fan I talked to mentioned Steve Sarkisian being like kind of at the center of this offensive controversy or downturn. Kind of where do you see the troubles lying on offense? Is it a Matt Ryan problem? Is it a Sarkisian problem? Is it something even bigger?
Well, I think so. First of all, I think that it's fair to grade Sarkisian on a curve a little bit. Last year was his first year as the offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
In any case with a new offensive coordinator, there's going to be a small adjustment period. And so despite the fact that it was frustrating for everybody last year watching our offense not produce, I was willing to give him a pass on that.
Mm-hmm. And
in the early portion of this year, we actually did see the kind of improvement that we wanted to see. But you're right. In the last 4 games, the offense has cratered. And I do think that there are some tendencies in Sarkisian's game planning that you can point to.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, acknowledging that we didn't have great starting guards before our starting guards both went down with injury. But regardless, Sarkisian, from a philosophical standpoint, the outside run is the new inside run, which has created a lot of really interesting dynamics on the field. But you'll see us run a toss sweep like as often as another team might run off the B gap.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we don't trust our guards. But it also, it's led to situations where Tevin Coleman, because again, Devontae Freeman has missed a lot of time this year.
Yeah.
Tevin Coleman spends a lot of time running east and west before he cuts north and south. And you sort of see that play out in the stats because, while Coleman has respectable yards per carry, if you just break it down in terms of rushes that gained a yard versus rushes that didn't gain a yard, he is the worst in the league in terms of the percentage of his rushes that did not gain positive yardage.
Yikes.
And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that we're running outside on 58% of the plays.
Yeah, that definitely will not help in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, I've talked about this numerous times. With any team, though, you could have an MVP quarterback back there, but if you don't trust your offensive line and Matt Ryan is on the ground the majority of the time or scrambling for his life, he's not going to be a good quarterback. It's going to make his life incredibly difficult.
That you watched the Ravens game.
Yeah, I did. I saw some highlights of that, and I was like, oh, this is not good. Okay.
Yeah, no, and it was basically like that the entire game. Like there was not a snap where you felt like the line knew where the pressure was coming from and was going to protect him. And so that's problematic. The fact that we don't have a standard running game is problematic. So if you're gonna do play action and then have him roll out off of a B gap run, it helps if you actually run at the B gap every now and again.
Yes, very much so. Or they're gonna be like, "I know you're gonna run it." Yeah,
no, exactly.
I got it. So that being said, obviously the offensive line injuries obviously are plaguing you guys this year.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
No, obviously not. And all that being said, you guys 2 years ago, we're literally moments away. I'm not going to bring it up, but moments away from winning the Super Bowl, right?
I appreciate your sensitivity, but yeah, I mean, it's a real thing that happened. And despite the fact that my heart is still in some pieces in my chest.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to acknowledge that, right? And Kyle Shanahan, for all the greatness that he brought to our offensive coordinator position for that 1 year, he didn't run the ball on 3 straight downs.
Yeah.
Where all he had to do was run the ball. So,
yeah,
it's easy to criticize offensive coordinators, but in this case, we've had Sarkisian, who's been a bit of a disappointment, but we also had Shanahan, who was amazing and still managed to be a bit of a disappointment at the end of it all.
Yeah. Now, I listen. I know all about blowing leads in big games. Hence the two. I still have not gotten over 2014 against the Seahawks. So I completely feel you on that one. And yeah, but that being said, you coming in even last year though, everyone thought that you guys were going to be world beaters, right? That you guys were going to take this amazing team. You were so close to the Super Bowl. Okay, let's do it again. And so as from a fan's perspective, one, I think it also shows just how quick things can change within the NFL. I mean, you look at the Cowboys too a few years back, and they were amazing, and they're mostly rookies with an amazing offensive line, and now they're doing what they're doing. Kind of going to a resurgence a little bit. But that being said, does that speak to a greater message of what's going on with the Falcons when it comes to consistency? Because obviously 2 years ago, fresh off the Super Bowl loss, you got to be looking ahead at this team's short-term future thinking okay, all arrows are pointing up because literally we were this close.
Yeah, I mean, it's always disappointing to backslide. I think that there are a few elements at play. I think, a lot of the whatever window was open was predicated on our offense continuing to perform, yes, but then our defense really developing and coming into its own. And a big part of that plan was those 3 guys I mentioned, Deion Jones, Keanu Neal, and Ricardo Allen. And last year, to their credit, they did. And it's easy to gloss over that because the offense was kind of terrible. But a lot of those 10 games that we won were won by basically getting into field goal range because the offense wasn't clicking and kicking field goals and then relying on the defense to do their job, right? We kicked a lot of 40 to 55 yard field goals that year and just counted on the defense to keep us in the game. And they did. if we found ourselves in a position this year where the defense was playing at the same level, I actually believe that this year's offensive production would put us in a better place than it did a year ago.
Gotcha.
But alas, here we are.
Yeah, alas, we're sitting here crying on this podcast right now. So, yeah, listen, I know all about expectations and dashed ones. So, kind of taking a look before we get into the rest of the season and talk about this Sunday.
Sure.
Going into the offseason, kind of where for you are going to be the main targets of this is what needs to get fixed. Obviously, the offensive line is going to be a priority. Continuously build that defense, get healthier, all that great stuff. But if you had to identify a couple needs of your team, of whether it's drafting or getting some free agents, where are you targeting? And, is there going to be any turnover in the front office? Kind of how do you see this playing out this offseason?
Well, I mean, it's hard to make predictions about what's going to happen with the front office or the coaching staff.
Sure.
I think there are some valid criticisms of Dan Quinn's game management ability, but I don't think that those criticisms rise to the level of a fireable offense.
Mm-hmm.
If for no other reason than that defensive group that I mentioned was basically built for the purpose of, well, I mean, it was built for Dan Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
And to fire him now would be to tear everything down that's been built. And I don't think we're quite there, considering we, like you said, played in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. We're in the playoffs a year ago. With that said, if we don't fix the guard position, it's a big problem. We're paying Alex Mack a lot of money to sit in there next to two really ineffective guys.
Yeah.
And it's been a long, long time since we actually invested draft capital or even a tidy free agent contract in a guard. And unfortunately, those chickens are coming home to roost in a big way because we lost both of our starters, and both of the guys who are starting now, or I might even say all three since we just swapped one out, have proven themselves to be subpar.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that before the season started. It's not like this was a shock.
Yeah.
So that's where I would see an investment of capital. I could see us adding some new blood at running back. I don't think Tevin Coleman has made a great case to stick around, especially considering that we're already paying Devontae Freeman, and he's got his own set of availability issues.
Yeah.
So I think running back and guard on the offense are kind of where we focus what we're looking for. On the defense, it's not a shock. It's the same need we've had for the past couple seasons, which is defensive tackle
mm-hmm.
and line depth more generally. The only concern I have is that a year ago I would have told you that Desmond Trufant and Robert Alford were a high quality cornerback tandem.
Yeah.
This year they have not been playing like it. So I'm a little leery about the cornerback position, but I don't think I'm ready to invest a high draft pick in it yet.
Gotcha.
Myself.
Because you guys, it was this year for Calvin Ridley, right? That you went out and got
him.
Yep,
that's right.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been playing pretty, from the little that I know and peeking in on fantasy, I feel like he's been doing all right. And obviously, tag team with Julio Jones. I know you guys lost Mohamed Sanu, but I mean, you have to think the pieces are there, right? For you guys to be that successful, high-powered offense again. Now it's just a matter of making sure Matt Ryan can stand up, which is obviously important, and giving him a run game that he can depend on, which will open up the play action.
I think that that's fair. I mean, I love Calvin Ridley as a player. And really he has exceeded all expectation. With that said, I was pushing really hard for Will Hernandez when we were holding that pick.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's necessarily been proven out to be wrong.
That's fair enough. Yeah, so, that's definitely, considering all the problems that obviously you can't foresee, what the issues are going to be this year and injuries and all that stuff, but that's
sure.
a very valid point.
So, I mean, yeah. So, yeah, I think you're right. We've got the skill pieces. It's kind of hard to argue with that. We just need to get the hosses up front that can open up the running game and hopefully give Steve Sarkisian enough confidence to run up the middle and also just keep Matt Ryan standing up. I mean, in a lot of ways, Matt Ryan is similar to Drew Brees in that if there's a speed rush on the outside, he's going to want to step up in the pocket.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have some space to step up into.
Sure. Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, like, you guys are also in a very competitive division, right? You have Drew Brees, who, like, the Saints, like, they went through like that downturn, but then they're like, we're back, like, here we go again. And they have that offense, but they also have like two running backs that they can rely on, and they have all those weapons. And even the Panthers, they're always in the conversation, always in the wild card running, and the Buccaneers. Hey, besides last Thursday, they were the only ones who beat the Saints this year by putting up what was like 48 points. So
yeah,
you guys definitely have one of the more competitive divisions in football, and so it's almost like you have to just like continuously adapt, or you're just going to get drowned out by all the high-powered offenses that just exist there.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say it was other than what you described, but that's really very true. I mean, I'll be the first one to throw a party the day Drew Brees retires, but until that happens, it's a constant arms race.
Yeah,
and I wish it were one that felt easier to win on a regular basis, but there is just so much talent in the NFC South right now.
Yeah, no, I hear you. The North is not maybe with QB talent, but it's slowly getting there.
I mean, you have Khalil Mack to worry about. That's plenty from my perspective.
Just don't remind me. It's so bad. It's so bad. But like, he could have gone anywhere except the North. But yeah, no, he decided to make our lives miserable for the next godforsaken years. But that being said, kind of looking ahead, we'll talk about this Sunday in particular in a moment. But going towards like this season. Playoffs, I don't know if you guys are 100% mathematically eliminated. Technically, we're not. But I think we could both be like, yeah, I don't see it happening this year. But, how do you see the rest of the season playing out?
I mean, we've got this game against you on Sunday, which I'll stick a pin in because there is more to talk about. We've finished our tour of the NFC North. We have a couple more division games coming up against the Panthers and the Bucks. I have a hard time seeing us beating the Panthers at this moment, but anything's possible.
Sure.
They were our first win this year, so I don't really know what I'm saying there. And then, the Bucks, I want to say that looks like a win, but it's just, it's too hard to predict anything at this moment from that perspective. And then outside of that, I believe we have a game against the Seahawks, and that I think that rounds out our season, if I'm not mistaken. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. And I don't see us beating the Seahawks. And full disclosure, my wife's a Seahawks fan, so I pay reasonably close attention to the Seahawks as well. And it's just, I mean,
my
their defense is rounding into form,
sorry.
And yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is. You marry, you make certain compromises when you marry.
You just put in like, the prenup. You're just like, listen.
But yeah, no, the Seahawks look good. Chris Carson's playing good football.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson's playing out of his mind, and their young defense is, I mean, it's not the Legion of Boom, but it's better than the old decrepit version of the Legion of Boom that they were trotting out a year ago.
It's very true. Very, very true. Which drives me. I hate the Seahawks with a burning passion. So yeah, anytime that I can see them fail is a good day. But yeah, it's just I'll never forgive them ever for anything. So yeah, I mean, like, listen, it's funny you brought up the point of like we should beat the Bucks, but I was saying the same thing about the Cardinals. Like, oh, this should be an easy win.
Right, and I said the same thing about the Browns earlier this season. God help me.
Yeah, well. We were sitting there with the same record as the Browns, so it's we're all in the same sinking boat together, my friend. We're all the violin players on the Titanic. But
we are all the Browns.
All right, so this Sunday, this was a game that I kind of had circled in the beginning of the year. I thought it would obviously be more competitive in the sense that, like, it was going to determine maybe our seasons or the wild card or playoff races. But the one advantage that I did give us was that you were going to Lambeau. We're not playing in your fancy new stadium, so that's always good.
Sure.
But
and it's going to be cold. And listen, teams from the South, not huge fans of cold weather.
Yeah, I said the same about Arizona. Again, a dome team from Arizona. But again, so I was circling. And I was like, all right, I'm going to give the Packers a slight edge because you guys have had our number for the past couple years. But after Sunday, yikes! I don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see how you guys adapt to the cold, and then also what our team is able to do with a new interim head coach, and just a plethora of doubt and existential dread. But how do you see this Sunday kind of playing out?
Well, for what it's worth, the Falcons have a long and storied history of losing games they should win to interim coaches who are coaching their first week.
Okay.
It seems like anytime we play a team that just had their head coach fired, we manage to bungle it spectacularly. So that may also be working in your favor. However, I will say this, in cold weather, typically what you want to do is run the ball. I've already expressed my frustration with our ability to really establish, the between the tackles running game. And so that gives me pause. In addition, if we were to establish such a running game, we'd have to run right at Mike Daniels, and nobody wants to do that. That's not fun.
Yeah, he's injured, so you won't have to worry about that on
Sunday.
Oh,
hooray. I mean, not hooray for injuries, but
sure,
that makes things a little bit easier looking for us. Well, never mind. But anyway, kudos to Mike Daniels for being an awesome player, regardless of whether he's on the field this week or not. But yeah, so we'll have to run between the tackles. I'm not sure we're constitutionally set up to do that.
Yeah.
And it says a lot when your rookie 5th round pick is better running between the tackles than, the running back who's supposed to be your starter.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit nerve wracking. With that said, Julio Jones will terrorize any defensive secondary that's charged with covering him. Let's make no mistake about that.
Very true.
If Matt Ryan can get the ball out, which is an open question, then I have no doubt that between Julio and then Sanu and Ridley on the other side, the secondary will have a challenging day.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, will there be wind, and will the cold weather affect the ability of receivers to catch the ball? And frankly, our receivers haven't had the best hands this year or last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, adding cold weather to that mix just makes it a little bit more uncertain.
I think
if I'm making a prediction, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I think just based off what you're talking about, and I'm like, nope, we can't do that. Nope, we can't do that. No, this might be an ugly ass game. This just might, we might turn this on and be like, oh, this is sad. This is just.
That's kind of what I was thinking. And in fact, that's where I was going with my prediction. I kind of think the Packers win in the midst of a final seconds, we're going to score and take the lead drive that ends with a drop. That just feels like how the season is going.
That visual is just perfection. You're just you got it out, and we're done. Okay, cool. Let's pack it up. Yeah, listen, we did the same thing of driving down the field, Mason Crosby, and it sails the wide right. Okay,
I watched that. The slack-jawed disbelief from everyone in the Packers organization as that sailed left. It was just.
Even the announcers,
I know too well.
They were just oh, the Packers are going to lose this game. I was like, thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have been watching the same thing. Really, really appreciate that. Yeah, I know. Okay, that is probably the greatest prediction you could possibly give, that it's going to end on a potential game-winning drive and end with a drop. And I think, that will be, or who knows? Maybe we'll tie. Those seem to, they haven't been around in a while. Let's get a good old-fashioned tie back again. It's just 0-0, and at the very end, everyone just sobs in each other's arms, because I feel like that's really the definitive, that's the galvanizing moment that Rodgers was talking about.
That would be sort of an historic season-marking moment for the Packers, as I don't know that there's been a team with 2 ties on their record in a season since God knows.
Listen, we're not setting any other records. Might as well do this one. So that's it. But Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Where can the people find you and all the things that you do?
Well, the things that I do aren't related to football, but they can find me with my podcast on SoundCloud called Doomed to Repeat It. And it is a podcast about comparing moments from history to our current moment in current events and determining whether and to what extent we can draw effective parallels about the two. So it's Doomed to Repeat It on SoundCloud.
Love it. Yeah, I will definitely check that out because I am interested, my good sir. And as a history.
Also, fair warning, we are only just posting the first 3 episodes. So if you look for it today and it's not there, check back again in a few days.
Awesome. Yeah, this will be released on Thursday, so maybe by then. But yeah, no, check
that ought to line up pretty well.
All right, I love it. But Nick, I appreciate you coming on the show, bud. And good luck with the rest of the season. And I hope somebody's happy after Sunday.
Well, that makes 2 of us, I suppose. Thanks for having me, John. I had a really good time.
Absolutely. So check out Nick's podcast. That sounds pretty great. Doomed to repeat it. God, I hope we never repeat this season ever again. You can find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TomGrossi Comedy, or Tom Grossi Comedy on Twitter, Patreon, and LinkedIn. I'm not on LinkedIn for that. But Facebook and Instagram and all that great, wonderful stuff. Check out Packast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, and of course here on the YouTube. We stream every single Packers game and also do multiple episodes per week. But thank you so much for watching. Hopefully we can reclaim some of our dignity this weekend. We'll see. I'm Tom Grossi. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, go Pack Go.